Hi everyone, welcome to the video. This video's about E-Class. I have 3 builds and tunes that I'm sharing with you that I'm running for this week's E-Class event. And mate, let me just tell you, I love E-Class. It is carnage, absolute chaos. But first off, let's start with the 1965 Mini Cooper S. So we're going to start with conversions. Now, conversions, I've actually gone for the 2-litre V2 engine. So it's the first engine swap. We've left the drivetrain as front-wheel drive, and there's no body kit installed in this car. Now heading over to aero and appearance, we've got the rear wing on race and the front bumper on race. We have removed the rear bumper, and we've got a stock hood and stock side skirts. Now drivetrain, stock clutch, we've gone for the race transmission for them quicker gear shifts, the street driveline to shed a bit of weight, and the race differential. So heading over to wheels, we've got the stock 10-inch front rim size, but the rear has been upped to 11 inches. And the wheels that I've opted for are the Borbit A's. I think they're quite funky and really suit the car. Now going to tyres, we've got the race tyre compound with a 185mm front tyre width and a 205mm rear tyre width. Again, just keeps that back end in check. So for platform and handling, we've got race brakes, we have race spring and dampers, front and rear race anti-roll bars and a race weight reduction, no chassis roll cage and no ballast. In engine we have nothing installed here, everything is stock, and in fuel and air we have the race exhaust to add some power and shift some weight. So now let's hop into the tune for this build, and we're going to start with tyre pressures. Now the tyre pressures I've gone for are 24.5 on the front and 23.0 on the rear. Work well for me. Feel free to adjust if you want. This is the gear ratios that I've actually gone for. I've gone for 3.79, 2.81, 2.04, 1.54, 123, 101, and 0.84. Tops out at just over 100 mile an hour, so it is a bit more of a grippy car, but it does do all right around the tracks that you run in E-Class. The alignment, I've gone for negative 1.2 on the front and negative 1.0 on the rear. 0.0 on toe and a 7-degree of caster angle. Maxed out roll bars for this. It just really worked well, in fairness. So I've maxed out the front and maxed out the rear. Springs, I've opted for 300.1 pounds on the front and 230 pounds on the rear. And the ride height is completely slammed at 4.8 and 5.2 inches. So the bump stiffness, I've actually gone for 2.4 on the front and 1.4 on the rear. So a bit softer than usual. But the rebound stiffness to compensate this is at 11.5 on the front and 10.0 on the rear. The roll center height offset, I've gone for 8.3 inches front and 8.3 inches on the rear, so quite stiff all around. And the anti-dive, we've gone for 40% on the front and 35.2% on the rear, just to stop the back end squatting, which front wheel drive cars are renowned for. So for aero, the downforce that I've gone for is 50 on the front and 75 on the rear. You don't really need any downforce in E-Class. Adding them does usually take quite a lot of PI off the car. Braking balance is at 50 and the pressure's at 150. Personal choice, feel free. The differential, the accelerator is at 100%. And the deceleration is at 0. So all in all, I love this car. I actually think it's such a fun car to drive, and it does remind me of Mr. Bean, for those of you that have seen him. But I do actually enjoy racing it on this game. I think it is a very solid car in E-Class. And now with that out of the way, let's move on to car number 2. That is the Toyota Corolla SR5. This is actually, I believe, the worst car in this game. Stock, but I think in E-Class it does turn to one of the best. But let's hop into performance anyway, and again start from right to left. So starting with conversions, we've kept the stock 1.6 litre inline 4 with a stock drivetrain and stock aspiration conversions. And now moving to aero and appearance, we've got the race rear wing with the race front bumper, and rear bumper is stock. Heading over to drivetrain, we've got a stock clutch with a race transmission, sports driveline, and a race differential. Moving over to wheels, we've got the stock front rim size and a stock rear rim size. But the wheels that I've gone for are the lightest ones. These are the Rotor J.SPLs. Tyres, I've gone for the race tyre compound for that extra bit of grip, with a maxed out front tyre width 225 and the rear tyre width at 225 also. Right, moving to platform and handling, we've got race brakes with race springs and dampers, race front anti-roll bars, race rear anti-roll bars with a race weight reduction, stock roll cage and no ballast. Engine, I've actually gone for camshafts. And the reason for this is I just wanted to try and get as much horsepower out of this car as possible. There probably will be more options and better options. But I chose this, I liked it, and the car sounds really good when going through the gears. Everything else on here is stock. And fuel and air, everything is stock bar the race exhaust. Again, shed that weight, but add that power. So going over to tuning, we've gone for 24.5 psi front and 23.5 on the rear. Now for the gearing, I've gone for a ratio at 6:10, with the gear ratios at 2.86, 1.84, 1.36, 1.09, 0.93 and 0.8. Seem to work well for me, but feel free to adjust these if you wish. Alignment, I've actually kept these quite generic, but I've gone for -1.6 on the front, -1.2 on the rear. Toe is at 0 and at 0, and the angle of the caster is at 7.0. Now going over to anti-roll bars, we've got 32.45 front and 32.72 on the rear. So again, quite a stiff car. Springs, again, quite stiff, 500.7 on the front and 450.3 on the rear. Felt this car was quite wishy-washy, and stiffening the springs right up really did balance this car out. Bump stiffness 2.4 on the front and 2.7 on the rear, followed by 11.5 front rebound and 11.1 rear rebound. The roll center height on the front is 5.1 inches, and the rear is at 2.8. Now the anti-dive on the front is 40.3, and the anti-squat on the rear is at -20. And the reason for this is I needed a bit more weight over the rear to stop that back end stepping out mid-corner on throttle. Aerodynamics, again, they've been lowered as much as possible, 50 and 75 on the rear. Brake and balance is at 50 and the pressure is at 150, with an acceleration at 100% and deceleration at 0%. But that's been my Toyota Corolla. It's quite nippy, quite decent around most tracks, and it will fit the bill very well. Right lads, on to the third and final build of the video. We've got the 1955 Porsche 550 Spider. This is obviously a bit of a beast. Let's get into the build. Right, so hopping into the upgrade shop, and as you can see, the car looks absolutely ridiculous. But we've kept the stock 1.5 litre F4 engine. We've got a stock drivetrain and a stock aspiration conversion. Aero, we've got the front race and the rear race aerodynamics. Nothing on the rear bump and nothing on the hood. Over to drivetrain, we've got a stock clutch with a race transmission, sports driveline, and a race differential. Wheels, we've got the whopping 21-inch alloys on the front and on the rear. And the alloys I've opted for are these OZ Superleggera 3 Forged. Let's go to tyres. We've got a race tyre compound with a stock front tyre width, but we've upped the rear to 235mm because it does have a very weird back end. Platform and handling, we've got sports brakes, we've got race spring and dampers, front and rear race anti-roll bars, no roll cage, and an extra light ballast. Hopping over to engine, this is a completely stock powered car, nothing on engine and nothing on fuel and air. So let's hop over to the tuning and start with tyre pressures. Quite a light car, so the tyre pressures can be lower. We've gone for 24.5 psi front, 24.0 on the rear. Gearing, the final drive's at 6.10 with 1.95, 1.38, 1.10, 0.9, 0.77 and 0.67. Feel free to change this if you need, but this gearing worked fairly well for me. Alignment, this is where the numbers get a bit fishy. We've got -1.2 on the front and -2.9 on the rear. Massive camber on the rear. This is what I mean by this car having a very weird back end. Front toe 0, rear toe 0, and the front caster is at 7.0. Anti-roll bars, quite a stiff car here. 35 on the front, 40 on the rear. So springs, I've actually gone quite soft here at £299.9 on the front and £275.8 on the rear. Slam the ride high at 4.0 and 4.3. These work really well for me. I don't like the car too agile, but if you need it, knock these up by maybe £50 to £100 front and rear, and you'll have a more aggressive car if that's your kind of style. Damping, quite even really. 2.5 front, 2.5 rear, and 11.5 front rebound and 11.3 rear rebound. Just felt that the front turned in a bit too quickly sometimes, and increasing this front rebound did slow that down. And it's now super stable into corners. Roll center height, so this is very low for this car. I I felt like mid-corner, it just kept lifting the car up, and I don't want that. So I've gone for 2.8 inches on the front and 1.6 inches on the rear. Anti-dive is quite low, 25.4%, and the anti-squat on the rear is 10.7. Downforce, I've gone for 50 and 75. Braking balance is at 50, pressure's at 150. And the acceleration on the differentials 100 and 0. Absolutely monstrous build, this car. Love it to bits. And it's a very, very easy car to get some wins in. So yeah, that's the E-Class build. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, leave me a like and a comment. Whilst I've still got you, do your boy a favour, click on this video here and give that one a watch. But as always, take care of yourselves and stay tuned for more.